Good evening, this is Edward and Ann. It's Sunday, May 10th, and this is a current events tracking word that we're going to actually start posting as we are directed and as we continue to connect the dots on what is unfolding in the earth during this time. You recall one of the recent words we talked about the rain that was beginning to come as salt raining down upon the earth, and it entered a time that God was going to begin to cleanse the earth. And of course, that doesn't come without judgment. And what we saw first came about 8 years ago, and it has come in subsequent appearings since then. But what brought it to mind was a quote from a governor or whatever he might be out of Mexico as they're beginning to face the reality of what has been slow to overtake that country. Except he looked beyond the obvious and said there's a tsunami coming. He says, and it was a tsunami of hatred, because what we've seen during this time is men's hearts being revealed, and the anger and the hostility that is deeply pent up within people. And it really doesn't take too much to set it off. It's been brewing for quite some time. And we saw this, it was about 3 years ago at the Feast of Tabernacles, when the Lord appeared and gave a vision about you could say, principality, a very large, high order of satanic being that was bringing into the earth an input of darkness and hatred that would fill all the earth. And the only ones that would be immune would be those who are truly walking with God, not in form or word, but in deed. And that separates a great deal out of those who believe they're walking with God, but really haven't understood that they're just still walking the path of the soul flesh. But we saw that about 3 years ago, and as I listened to his comment, it sparked a memory of that vision. But there's something more than just an anger and a hatred that's beginning to fill the earth. And that's prophecy in the New Testament about how the violence will fill the earth. And that, once again, is very similar to the days of Sodom and Gomorrah and what filled the earth at that time and what is filling the earth during this time. So, what we're looking at right now is a tsunami that is either coming very soon or it is already upon us. And I don't know which way it is. You know, when you are standing on a beach and a tsunami would be coming, hypothetically, I mean, I don't know that any of us have stood there, but you see the waters recede greatly. And then, of course, the tsunami comes with such violent force. Whether we're at the point of seeing the waters draw back quickly, revealing the ocean floor to be followed by the tsunami, or whether the tsunami has completely hit, is a question that I have before the Lord. But I know that we're in this timeline right now, and the judgment that is beginning to fill the earth is very much part of what we see unfolding with this virus and everything else that comes along with it. The virus really is the tip of the iceberg, because the fallout of what's going to come because of the virus and because of the reactions, it's like every action has a reaction or a cause and effect. So we don't have just a whole lot of things happening with states closing down, cities and counties, and all of these restrictions going upon people, and everything else as just a random cause that will not have a corresponding reaction. It's basically a principle of physics. What is happening now is going to have a far larger reaction that we haven't really begun to see yet. There's been speculation, and of course there's been concern about the economic fallout that not only is facing the country, but for the first time really facing every country of the world in a global meltdown, if you will. And that's where we are. So all of these energies that have been put out over the last 60 days, and reactions and movements towards exercising authority over the peoples, and just a lot of things that have been going on, are not going to go without a corresponding reaction. For someone to think, well, it's okay, it's all going to just work out and be fine, they don't realize the energy and force that has been set into motion. And with every cause, there's an effect, and there's going to be a domino principle unfold here that is far greater than just the virus itself. It indeed will be a domino effect, and that was one of the prophecies that came many years ago, that all we have to do is get in, push the button, and once that button is pushed, or the light switch is flipped, however you want to look at it, it was expressed both ways. Once that switch is flipped, the events scheduled for the end time will unfold quickly. And that would be the domino effect. We're going to see one after another quickly unfold. And that is where we are now. The vision that came 8 years ago was very interesting, because it had to do with the immunity that was given to God's people. Everyone was standing on the water, literally standing on the water. Small groups, all over scattered. And far in the distance, You could see the beginnings of a massive tsunami coming at lightning speed. An angel or guardian from the Lord appeared and stood with the groups. Each one had their own angelic host or guardian. And each one in the group held hands together. And as they looked unto God, an invisible canopy appeared and covered each of those groups. Just as the massive tidal wave came before them, passed over them, protected by the canopy, and did not touch them. But when that tsunami finally hit landfall, the landfall was utter and complete devastation. And that's where we are. This tsunami, this tidal wave of judgment, it has either just passed over and begun to hit landfall, or it's quickly approaching. But there is immunity, and that immunity is in the remnant. And there's many prophecies that you could look at, talks about the remnant being, salvation being in the remnant. But this is where we are with this, and this is just one vision that we wanted to mention because we are definitely moving deeply into the days of judgment. We have a second vision that we're going to deal with next. We also see happening at the same time. Amen.